You finally did it. You crossed the finish line you have been running toward for years. Maybe it was the promotion. Maybe it was the number in your bank account. Maybe it was the relationship, or the business, or the degree you sacrificed your youth to secure. You spent 1,000 sleepless nights for this exact moment. You bled for it. You ignored your exhaustion for it. You expected a parade in your mind. You expected the heavy weight on your chest to finally lift. You expected to feel complete. Instead, you feel nothing. Just a terrifying, echoing silence. You are standing at the top of the mountain. The air is thin, the view is clear, and a dark whisper creeps into the back of your mind. Is this all there is? What do I do now? And then comes the most frightening thought of all. If this did not fix me, what will? You thought the arrival would save you. You thought the destination was a sanctuary. But the walls are entirely empty. You are sitting at a massive banquet. The table is overflowing with everything you ever wanted. The feast is endless. But your stomach is completely hollow. You are starving. And no matter how much you consume, the hunger never stops. Look around you. We live in a society built entirely on the illusion of arrival. From the moment you were a child, you were handed a map. The instructions were very clear. Work hard, get the grades, get the job, get the money, build the status. The map comes with a promise. It promises that once you reach a certain coordinate, you will finally be allowed to be happy. You will finally be enough. The anxiety will stop. The imposter syndrome will fade. The restless voice in your head will finally go quiet. So you put your head down, you grind. You treat the present moment as an obstacle to overcome. The present is just a waiting room for the glorious future. You endure the stress because you believe the payoff is real. You trade your peace today for the promise of peace tomorrow. But it gets worse, because when you finally arrive and the emptiness sets in, you do not blame the map. You blame yourself. You feel a crushing, suffocating sense of shame. You look at your life and think you should be grateful. You have the comfort. You have the security. People would kill for what you have. Your friends congratulate you. Your family is proud. Everyone is clapping. But inside, you are completely numb. Why are you so miserable? Why is your mind still a war zone? Why do you wake up with that same familiar dread in your chest? You cannot talk about this with anyone. If you complain, you sound arrogant. You sound ungrateful. So you wear the mask. You smile. You pretend the arrival feels exactly how they told you it would feel. And in secret, you convince yourself that you are broken. You think you made a mistake. You think the goal was just not big enough. So what do? You move the goalpost. You tell yourself that the next promotion will do it. The next income bracket will finally bring the peace you crave. The next milestone will be the real finish line. You get back on the treadmill, and you start running again. Harder this time, faster this time. Look closer. This is not a lack of gratitude. This is not a flaw in your character. This is a biological trap. Modern science has a name for this specific type of suffering. They call it the hedonic treadmill. We operate on a fundamental illusion. We believe that achieving our desires will permanently elevate our baseline of happiness. It is a lie. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you moving. It is an ancient survival mechanism that has turned into a modern prison. We chase dopamine thinking it is the ultimate reward. We think it is the feeling of joy. But dopamine is not the molecule of joy. It is the molecule of craving. It is the chemical of anticipation. It peaks right before you get what you want. It drives you forward. It makes you hungry. And it plummets the exact second your hand closes around the prize. You are biologically hardwired to be dissatisfied with the arrival. The system is rigged against you. As long as you play the game of arrival, you are guaranteed to lose. You are chasing a horizon that constantly recedes. You are trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Let that sink in. Your biology does not want you to be at peace. It wants you to conquer, to acquire, to hoard, and then to feel empty so you will go out and conquer again. It uses your dissatisfaction as fuel. You are running a race with no finish line, fueled by a chemical that punishes you for stopping. But you already knew that. You have felt the drop. You have felt the sudden, terrifying crash of meaning the day after a massive success. The real question is how we escape. How do we stop running when the treadmill is the only machine we know how to use? 2,500 years ago, long before modern neuroscience, someone understood this perfectly. They did not have brain scans. They did not have chemical analyses. But they observed the human mind with a terrifying clarity. They looked at the ambitious, the wealthy, and the powerful of the ancient world, and they realized that the most successful people were suffering from a very specific, incurable disease. They understood the psychology of the endless feast. They knew exactly why the arrival always feels like a betrayal. And more importantly, they knew how to break the illusion entirely. In the ancient Eastern traditions, there is a vivid, terrifying image used to describe the modern mind. They called it the realm of the hungry ghost. The Sanskrit word is preta. Imagine a creature wandering through an endless, scorching desert. It has a massive swollen stomach representing an infinite bottomless appetite, but it has a throat the size of a needle. It spends its entire existence desperately searching for food. But no matter how much it finds, it can only swallow a single drop at a time. The feast is always right in front of it. The satisfaction is always completely out of reach. It is cursed to consume without ever being nourished. Look at your own life. Look at the way you chase the next milestone. Are you not the hungry ghost? You get the promotion. You buy the car. You hit the revenue goal. The throat opens just enough to let a drop of satisfaction through. For exactly one day, you feel proud. The pressure releases, and then the stomach groans again. The emptiness returns. You immediately start looking for the next title, the next purchase, the next hit of validation. You are sitting at the banquet of your own life, entirely unable to taste the food. But that is only the surface. The real lesson is something far more disturbing. The Buddhist philosophers realized that the pain of the hungry ghost does not come from starvation. It comes from a fundamental delusion. The ghost believes that the next meal will finally cure the hunger. It believes entirely in the illusion of arrival. The ancients had a word for this perpetual state of dissatisfaction. They called it dukkha. In the West, we often translate this word as suffering. But that is not entirely accurate. A better translation is unsatisfactoriness. It comes from an ancient term describing a wheel with a broken axle. No matter how smoothly the cart rolls down the road, there is always a persistent, jarring bump. Something is always slightly off. Even in your best moments, even on the day of your greatest triumph, there is a quiet anxiety whispering in the background. This will not last. What comes next? How do I keep this? Be honest with yourself. How many times have you told yourself that you will finally rest when the project is finished? How many years have you postponed your peace for a future date that never actually arrives? You are practicing death while you are still alive. You are ignoring the only reality that actually exists, this exact moment, in exchange for a fantasy that will inevitably betray you. You think the arrival will change you. You think crossing the finish line will magically rewire your nervous system and turn you into a different person. It will not. Wherever you go, you take your mind with you. If your mind is a war zone on the journey, it will be a war zone at the destination. The throne room of your inner fortress is currently occupied by a ghost, and you are exhausting your life force trying to feed it. And this is where everything changes. The ancient cure for the hungry ghost is not to stop striving. This is the greatest misunderstanding of Eastern philosophy in the modern world. The sages were not telling you to drop your ambitions, sell all your possessions, and stare at a blank wall. The cure is not apathy. The cure is a radical, aggressive shift in your attachment. They taught a concept that shatters the illusion of arrival entirely. It is the practice of severing your attachment to the fruit of your labor. You must divorce your actions from the expectation of a reward. You build the business, but you do not attach your identity to the revenue. You write the book, but you do not care about the applause. You fight the battle, but you surrender the outcome. You do the work purely for the sake of the work. This is incredibly difficult for the Western mind to accept. We are conditioned to demand a return on our investment. We want the receipt. We want the payoff. But look at what the demand for a payoff has done to you. It has made you a prisoner to a future that does not exist. It has turned every action you take into a desperate transaction. You are constantly negotiating with reality, begging it to give you the satisfaction you believe you are owed. The ego lives entirely in the past and the future. It cannot survive in the present. So it creates the illusion of arrival to keep you running. It says, once we get there, we will be happy. But the there never arrives, because tomorrow is always exactly one day away. This is why the most miserable people on earth are often the ones who have achieved everything they set out to do. They have run out of future. They have no more mirages to chase in the desert. They are forced to confront the quiet, terrifying reality of the present moment. The shift happens here. When you stop demanding that the arrival saves you, the hungry ghost begins to starve. And as the ghost starves, the real you begins to wake up. You realize that the emptiness you felt after your last big win was not a curse. It was an awakening. It was the universe forcefully removing your blindfold. It was the brutal, necessary proof that external achievements cannot fix an internal wound. Let that sink in. The disappointment you felt, when you finally got what you wanted. That was not a failure. That was the truth breaking through the illusion. It was the most profound philosophical lesson you could ever receive. It proved that the map you were handed as a child is fundamentally flawed. Now, pay attention. This is the part that matters. If the destination is an illusion, what is left? The path. The ancient masters understood that true power is not found at the summit of the mountain. True power is found in the rhythm of the climb. They called this walking the Tao, or following your Dharma. It means aligning yourself with the action itself, completely independent of the result. When a master archer draws his bow, his mind is not on the target. His mind is on the tension of the string. His mind is on his breath. His mind is on the stance of his feet. The target is just an excuse to shoot the arrow. Your goals are just excuses to shoot the arrow. They are merely directions on a compass. They are not sanctuaries. They will not shelter you. They only give you a reason to walk. The purpose of the mountain is not to stand at the top and claim it. The purpose of the mountain is to force you to climb. It forces you to forge your legs, your lungs, your discipline, and your mind. The summit is temporary. The strength you build on the way up is permanent. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. You realize that the panic of the modern world comes from a desperate need to finalize everything. We want the final relationship, the final job, the final amount of money that will let us sit down and say, I am done. But life is not a fixed state. It is a flowing river. You cannot finalize a river. You can only learn to swim. When you sever the attachment to the arrival, you stop holding your breath. You stop treating your current life as the unedited rough draft of some glorious future. You step fully into the present arena. You work just as hard. You aim just as high. You build empires. But the desperation is completely gone. You become sovereign. Let that sink in. A man who does not need the reward cannot be manipulated. A man who finds his peace in the effort itself cannot be broken by failure. And more importantly, he cannot be corrupted by success. He is entirely untouchable. This is the ultimate medicine for the ambitious mind, and it requires us a radical, brutal reframing of every disappointment you have ever faced. Did the thrill of the promotion fade after a single week? Good. Now you can focus on mastering the craft instead of wearing the crown. Did the money fail to bring you the peace you were promised? Good. Now you know that inner peace was never for sale. Did you reach the absolute peak and feel entirely empty? Good. The mirage is gone. You have exhausted the illusion. Now you can finally deal with reality. Did you fail miserably and lose the prize? Good. You just bought a masterclass in detachment. The dominoes are falling. You are no longer a victim of your own biology. You are no longer a slave to the dopamine spike and the inevitable, crushing crash. You see the hedonic treadmill for what it is. A machine designed for hamsters, not for kings. You simply step off. You look back at the hungry ghost. You do not hate it. You do not fight it. You simply recognize it. It is just a psychological reflex. It is the echo of an ancient survival instinct, begging for more. You hear it crying out for the next meal, the next milestone, the next hit of validation, but you no longer identify with it. You watch it starve, and as it starves, the heavy iron chains of the future fall away from your wrists. This is not a theory. This is a practice. It is a quiet, daily rebellion against a world that profits from your endless dissatisfaction. So tonight, when you lie in bed, or the next time you cross a finish line, and the applause fades, and that familiar creeping silence enters the room, do not panic. Do not immediately look for the next mountain to climb. Do not move the goalpost. Stand still in the quiet. Look at the massive, empty banquet of your success. Feel the hollow ache of the ghost, and smile, because you finally know the truth. There is no finish line, and that is not a tragedy. That is your ultimate liberation, because if there is no arrival, then your life is not a waiting room. Your life is happening right now. It is happening in the tension of the string. It is happening in the dirt on your hands. It is happening in the quiet, steady rhythm of the climb. You do not need the arrival to save you. You are the architect of the path. Sleep well. The ghost is starving, but you are finally full. The walk itself is the destination.